Alright guys, welcome back to Project Anatomy. In today's video, we're going to go over the 8 functions and 5 needs of the human body. So, now that we know about the structural organization, what's the point? Why do we have all this highly organized structure? Well, it's because we have to accomplish 8 functions, and we need 5 things in order to be able to accomplish those functions. So what are the 8 functions? Maintaining boundaries, movement, responsiveness, digestion, metabolism, excretion, reproduction, and growth. The 8 things, 8 functions that the human body must go through to maintain itself. The 5 things we need in order to complete these 8 functions: nutrients, oxygen, water, normal body temperature, appropriate atmospheric pressure. Now we're going to go through each one and explain it a little bit further. Alright, number 1 is maintaining boundaries. So the whole point of maintaining boundaries is to keep your external environment distinct from the internal environment. Now in single-celled organisms, the external boundary is a limiting membrane. That basically keeps all the guts enclosed inside that cell. What that does is it allows in certain substances and restricts others from entering the cell. Now all the cells in the body are enclosed in what we call a selectively permeable membrane. Again, it's selectively permeable because some things are allowed in and some things are not allowed in. So the body as a whole is enclosed in the integumentary system, or otherwise known as skin. Whereas in single-celled organisms, think of the skin of the cell as the membrane. Now what that does is it protects our organs from drying out, protects us from bacteria, heat, sunlight, and an insane amount of other chemicals that we run into in the external environment. Okay, number 2 is movement. Now, movement includes activities promoted by the muscular system, and running, swimming, manipulating things with their fingers, blinking, facial expressions, all that stuff. Now, the skeletal system provides the bony framework that the muscles pull on, so that's also important in moving overall. Now, there's also substances like blood, food, urine inside our bodies that are propelled within their respective organs through movement and through the muscular system. There's also the concept of contractility. That's basically movement on the cellular level when muscle cells are shortened or elongated. Well, when they're shortened, it's called contractility, and when they're elongated, that's when they are extending back to their normal position. Next up is responsiveness. Now, responsiveness is when our bodies react to changes in the external environment, which we can refer to as stimuli. Now, for example, the withdrawal reflex. When we cut our hands on glass, we involuntarily just pull the hand back. It just happens on its own. Another example is when carbon dioxide in our blood rises to dangerous levels. Chemical sensors in our body are going to make us breathe more rapidly to get that carbon dioxide out. It's another example of responsiveness. Now, nerve cells are highly irritable because they communicate through electrical impulses, and it's kind of the job of the nervous system to be aware of the environment, and it's a control center of the body. So a lot of our actions are determined on our nervous system's ability to respond to external stimuli. But to a general extent, a general rule is that all cells are irritable to a certain extent, so they all have the ability to respond. Okay, digestion is the breaking down of ingested foodstuffs into simple molecules that can be absorbed by the body. Now, once the nutrients are absorbed, the blood distributes them throughout the entire body, through the cardiovascular system. That's another example of the interdependency of the body systems and the human body in general. Now, in one-celled organisms, the entire cell is the digestion factory, whereas in multicellular organisms like the human body, we have a digestive system which takes care of that function for the entire body. Metabolism is a broad term which refers to all chemical reactions that occur within the human body. To be more specific now, you have to look at some examples of these reactions. So when you break down substances into more simpler forms, that's called catabolism. When you build up substances or synthesize substances, that's called anabolism. Another example of metabolism is cell respiration. So that's when nutrients, in accordance with oxygen, produce ATP, which are molecules that power cell activity. The metabolism of the human body is largely regulated by hormones of the endocrine glands. Okay, excretion. Now, what is excretion? It's the removal of wastes, otherwise known as excreta, from the body. Now, we need to do this if we want to preserve normal function of the body. So there's many systems involved in excretion. For example, the digestive system for indigestible foodstuffs. That's residue in feces. The urinary system aids us in removing nitrogen-containing wastes in the form of urine, for example, urea. The respiratory aids us in removing carbon dioxide from our lungs and our blood supply, which is a very important function. And excretion is the process by which that occurs. Okay, so reproduction. This occurs at the cellular and the organismal level. Now, in cells, reproduction occurs when the original cell divides into two identical daughter cells. And at the organismal level, the reproduction system is responsible for producing an entirely new organism. The reproduction system is regulated heavily by the endocrine system, and another important facet of the reproduction is that the genders actually divide the labor, because the male produces the sperm and the female produces the egg. But additionally, the female reproductive system is responsible for harboring the site of fertilization, and preceding that you have the growth of the fetus within the female's womb, so she also protects and harbors the child. Okay, so last but not least is growth. Now, growth is the increase in size of a body part or the entire organism. Now, growth usually occurs by increasing the number of cells, but you can also increase the size of individual cells. And lastly, constructive activities must occur at a faster rate than destructive ones for it to be considered true growth. Alright, so this video is getting a little long, so what I'll do is I'll cut it off here, and in the next video we'll go over briefly the 5 survival needs, and then followed by that video we'll have an overview of all the organ systems, and following that will be homeostasis. So thanks for joining me, and I hope you're enjoying these videos. Thank you.